my fellow oddities, and welcome to a new video. Mortal Kombat is currently hanging on by a thread. I know it, you know it, NRS probably knows it, everybody knows it. This community was damn near on the brink of collapse before the release of Floyd, which has just barely appeased our appetite for now, but I wouldn't be surprised if things started going downhill once again. Multiple big YouTubers have announced their retirement because of the oversaturation of Mortal Kombat, specifically this era of Mortal Kombat, the NRS era. The same old formula is getting old. The chapter system in the story mode, the retcons, switching up the gameplay with variations and cameos, then there's invasions, and the crypt, and Combat League, and microtransactions, and I can go on. There's so much stuff at this point that people are sick of, and while there are definitely bigger changes that need to be made, I think a good thing NRS could do for the moment, instead of creating another full-fledged Mortal Kombat game, as they've done twice in a row now with Mortal Kombat 11 and Mortal Kombat 1, both very controversial, would be to make a Mortal Kombat spin-off game, a non-fighting game. And Mortal Kombat is actually on a streak of creating really great spin-off games. A streak of one, and it came out 20 years ago. Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks turns 20 years old this year, and before that we got Special Forces and Mythologies, neither being very well received. And I think it's time for another crack at it. We've heard rumors of a Shaolin Monks sequel or remake for years now, which would be great, but if that's not the direction they go in, then I'd like to give some of my ideas for what a new Mortal Kombat spin-off game could look like. And not just random, thrown out there cool ideas from the Mortal Kombat lore with random characters or premises, because while that's great for the Mortal Kombat community, it's not going to impact a wider audience, which I think they should do with this next spin-off, while also creating something that will give the Mortal Kombat community something to be excited for and just rejuvenate it a little bit because it's very dull at the moment. So the first game I'm going to talk about is going to be pretty small, and then as we go on, each game is going to fit the criteria I laid out more and more until we get to the last game, which I think will be the perfect blend of impacting a wider audience while also getting the Mortal Kombat community excited again. So let's start with the first one. There are very few characters in Mortal Kombat that are capable of having their own game, at least one that will sell well. Johnny Cage is one of those characters. But what would a Johnny Cage game look like? Well, I think it would obviously have to be very self-aware and meta, kind of like the Deadpool game where Johnny Cage is constantly narrating his own game and referring to it as his own game. But as for the gameplay, I'm thinking of one of those classic beat-em-up games that don't really get made too often anymore, something like Streets of Rage or the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. And as for the story premise, I think it would be really cool if each level was a different Johnny Cage movie. So the first one is like Ninja Mime or something, the second Citizen Cage, and maybe a Tommy Scissorfist level or something like that. And each level has different abilities you can use and enemies you face. But of course, we have to add some Mortal Kombat-ness to this Mortal Kombat game, so there should definitely be levels based off of the first tournament, maybe his death in MK3, which could lead to like this NetherRealm level where you get revived at the end or something like that, and then Mortal Kombat 4, Deadly Alliance, Deception, Armageddon, all that stuff. And I think this would be a really great, fun meta experience that doesn't hold the weight of the story, which still people are upset about since it's just so unserious that people won't take it seriously. I do think there is an issue with this game though, and that's that it's not exactly AAA title material. If anything, it feels more like a computer game the way I'm describing it. It's not really something that's going to hold over the community for multiple years in between the bigger mainline titles, because it's a linear story, so probably not much replay value, and it's focused on one character, so I'm not sure how much it's going to appease the fans for a long period of time, but regardless, it would be a fun thing to try out. Next, this isn't my original idea, but rather something I've heard pop up here and there throughout the community for a decent while now, and that's a game that combines all of the mini-games we've seen over the years, so chess combat, puzzle combat, and motor combat, and turns them into this sort of party game where you can choose between all of them, and they're much more complex than they were in Deception and Armageddon. It would also probably be great to add more mini-games, such as, I don't know, Mortal Kombat Clue, or Mortal Kombat, Pac-Man, or something like that. I don't know, there's so much stuff you could do with this sort of premise, and that's what makes this such a great idea, since there are all these small little games inside this bigger experience that can give you just such a variety of different things to do. I personally would be most excited to play Mortal Kombat again because it's actually really fun in Armageddon, and they could do a lot of really cool stuff if they don't have to package it with this whole other fighting game around it. But like the previous one, I'm not sure how much it's going to hold over the community between these big mainline games. They're mini games. Mini. Like it's in the name. Like it's literally like a small game, not very complicated, not super intuitive gameplay. People aren't going to try and grind the Mortal Kombat mini games game. And I just don't think it's going to be very fun if you don't have friends. And we know a lot of Mortal Kombat fans do not have friends. One of the most requested features to come back is Conquest Mode, and while it could definitely work as something packaged along with one of the mainline games, I think the best thing to do is to make it its own game entirely. Because then you can really expand it, an entire open world where you can scour the realms, meet friends and foes, do quests, and just explore the vast universe of Mortal Kombat. Almost like a Mortal Kombat RPG where you can create your own character and go on their journey to become this legendary warrior, a part of the series. You could go really in depth with the character relationships, one of the best parts of Mortal Kombat. For example, if you become friends with a character and then become friends with an enemy of that character, your relationship with that initial character might lessen a bit. Or you could have the nemesis system from Middle-earth, where you can develop this rivalry with a specific character, or even a really close friendship. You could even bring back factions from Mortal Kombat X, where you can train with a certain character, unlock their moves, and then become a part of their faction. And then you could have actual rivalries between these different factions, or even entire realms, which was attempted in Mortal Kombat X, but just the gameplay didn't really make you feel immersed in that sort of experience, but here you can have these actual faction battles. Now there is a lot of competition when it comes to this type of game, but I do think Mortal Kombat with its characters and with its story could actually make quite a splash. I mean, we know it's not making a splash in the fighting game scene right now, so you might as well try. But here's my concern with this type of game. It's the story reliancy, because as we know, NRS has, let's just say, struggle to create a consistent story that a lot of fans enjoy. So that's a problem that could absolutely tank this game, at least for the fans. The general audiences probably wouldn't have an issue because they've always been pretty accepting of NRS's stories, but if they did it the right way, it could be absolutely amazing. There's also the issue of this game being very large in scope and needing a lot of support for years down the line, which I just don't think NRS would be willing to do ever for something that isn't a mainline Mortal Kombat game, but this video is purely hypothetical. I don't actually think any of these spin-off games are going to happen, so it's fun to dream, I guess. Now, Fire and Ice has been talked about for a long time as a sequel to Shaolin Monks, and it was actually going to happen before getting cancelled. But I don't think this should be a sequel to Shaolin Monks as a team-up game between Scorpion and Sub. Instead, if you're looking for an action-adventure, more story-focused Mortal Kombat game in the vein of Last of Us, or the recent God of Wars, or the main inspiration for my vision of this game, Ghost of Tsushima, Scorpion and Sub-Zeros are the best characters to showcase in a game like that. A game following their rivalry as well as the history of the Lin Kuei and Shirai Ryu could be the one to really break out Mortal Kombat's lore into the mainstream and not just the gameplay and fatalities. And if done the right way, it could have Game of the Year potential. We saw how, story-wise, the most engaging and well-put-together parts of the Mortal Kombat 2021 movie were the parts with Scorpion and Sub-Zero, because it's just such a simple rivalry to get right and make interesting, as well as how popular the characters are. And the gameplay has a lot of potential as well. Imagine Ghost of Tsushima, but with Scorpion and Sub-Zero, with Scorpion's kunai and Sub-Zero's ice powers, and being able to customize Scorpion and Sub-Zero to your heart's content when it comes to design, and seeing their relationships with Hanzo's family and Kuai Liang, and just seeing this entire rivalry unfold over a full cinematic story experience. it would be awesome. You just can't deny it. There's so much potential here, and it could really throw Mortal Kombat into that discussion of being multimedia and not just a fighting game, which I definitely think it needs right now in order to separate itself from the fighting game drought we're currently in. And hey, if there's any two characters that could pull Mortal Kombat out of the state it's currently in, it's gotta be Scorpion and Sub-Zero. But, again, story-focused game. Very story-focused game. And with NRS at the helm, that could end disastrously. But ideally, this would probably be handed off to a different studio that has more experience making these types of games. But if you want to be safe, you don't want to take the risk, I think there's the best idea for a Mortal Kombat spin-off game. And that is... yes, that's right. Marvel Rivals has taken the gaming world by storm. Kinda out of nowhere. I literally had no idea this game was going to exist until it just did one day and it started popping up all over my feed. But Marvel Rivals takes the heroes and some of the villains of the Marvel Universe and puts them against each other in an online team versus team multiplayer game. And it is ridiculously fun, and the community is very engaged and very large as of right now, with the game getting updates and new characters very soon after release, and it's getting a lot of traction. And the game hasn't had much controversy because it just takes these established characters that people love and lets you play as them against other people playing as their favorite characters. No complex storylines or significant retcons to the characters or their backstories, enjoyable for both casual and hardcore fans, and easy to pick up and play and get good. It really feels like something made for the fans, and something like this could really take us out of this toxic era of the Mortal Kombat community with constant gatekeeping between the hardcore lore fans and the hardcore gameplay fans and the casuals and all that stuff. It would be really good for us. Now, I'm not really a fan of most of the designs in this game because, like, what is that, Spider-Man? Ew! So that's definitely something we should not carry over. We've had enough of the over-designed Mortal Kombat art style, but pretty much everything else would be perfect for a Mortal Kombat style game. Just imagine the most iconic Mortal Kombat characters being playable against each other, and the game getting constant support, adding new characters, new maps, new events. I think this would truly bring the community together again, just like how Marvel Rivals has brought together the Marvel Comics fans, as well as the MCU fans, and any other fans of Marvel media, or even just non-Marvel fans at all who just want to play a good game. In Mortal Kombat 1, something that has had a big downgrade from the previous games is the characters' identities and almost memeability within the gameplay. In MK11, you constantly saw people talking about the styles of each character and which characters have the most annoying playstyles and stuff like that. Stuff I haven't seen from Mortal Kombat 1 really at all. Where's the Shiva Stomp complainers? Where's the people complaining about Jackie Briggs and her quick attacks, or Scorpion's teleport and stuff like that? You just don't really see it. But Marvel Rivals definitely has this. You've probably seen the memes about Iron Fist players and Wolverine players and the archetypes you usually get when you see them and how they play, or the memes about support character mains. It's just such a fun aspect of any gaming community, especially when the characters themselves have so much personality. It's something Mortal Kombat should have. Easily. Another thing that I mentioned a little bit earlier is the lack of complicated story. Now, you're hard-pressed to find any game nowadays that doesn't have somewhat of a story, so Marvel Rivals definitely has one, but it's not the main focus, and I haven't paid attention to it at all since I started playing the game. And I think this is something that Mortal Kombat really needs right now, since the story has divided the community and it's leaning more and more to the negative side as time has gone on. And when it comes to gameplay, there's stuff you can take from Marvel Rivals, like rolls, ultimates, and team-up attacks. And then there's stuff you can take from MK, like the Super Meter, or X-Rays, or Fatal Blows, or whatever. And then there's just completely new stuff you can introduce. That's how great and flexible this genre of game is. And I can't even get into it all, because what I've described here is just scratching the surface. We haven't even gotten to maps yet. You could have Shang Tsung's Island, or Outworld, or so many different places, the NetherRealm. And of course, a Marvel Rivals style game with gory finishers and fatalities. Sign me up all the way for a Mortal Kombat Rivals game. Needs a better name because that's a bit too on the nose. Honestly, I'd really like to do a full video covering this type of game and what the gameplay and characters could look like. So if you want to see that, let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, make sure to check out the links in the description to my merch store, Twitter, and Instagram. Also make sure to give this video a like to show your support, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell to know when I next upload. And with that being said, that's it for this video, my fellow oddities. I'll see you next time.